All right, based on the fact that in my preview screen I see him in a hotel room, I think he's doing the Holiday Bowl tomorrow night. Oregon and North Carolina, the Fox Bowl game kicks at 7 locally on Fox 6. He is Joel Klatt, presented each week by MyBookie.ag. Code next round when you sign up, MyBookie.ag. What is up, Klatt? How are you?
I'm great. How are you guys doing?
Doing awesome. Are you in San Diego? Am I correct about that?
I am San Diego. Beautiful. Beautiful.
I was going to guess you were in an art studio. If you'll turn to your right, that little bowl over your shoulder, it looks like something you would be painting. Do you have a canvas over there? The fruit bowl.
That's, the bowl of fruit?
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I'm part of all these like rewards programs at all these hotels. So I check in and someone always brings up just a big bowl of fruit. And I'm like, thank you, I guess. I don't know. Yeah. But, not painting, certainly.
Yeah. That's art class 101, by the way, is a bowl of fruit.
Oh, yeah, that's where you start.
That's where you start. Anybody can draw the fruit, the angles there in the fruit, circles and half moons.
Yeah,
and
then you end
like
up male nudes. That's where you go after that, right?
I never made it that far.
I call it the thinker or the stinker.
Hey, these playoff games this weekend, let's go backwards in normally what we do in the SEC. Let's go with a non-SEC champion game. Wow, mind blown. Michigan and TCU. It just doesn't seem like, and you've seen both of these teams a lot this year, that TCU's defense will be able to stop that Michigan running game. What can TCU do to slow down that running game for the Wolverines?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think about like the one team, and maybe there was more than one team. Maryland had a bit of success for a little bit. Illinois had a bit of success, against Michigan for a little bit in that game. But the one constant for Michigan all year was that they wouldn't panic if they would go through a series of possessions without a lot of success. And they just knew that in the end, their run game was going to eventually take over. And so what you see is, and the evidence was in the Ohio State matchup, was that in the late third and then in the fourth quarter, they were always the dominant team on the ground. What I thought was interesting about Ohio State is that Ohio State seemed like absolutely steadfast in the belief that they were going to stop the run. They were going to do it come hell or high water. And unfortunately for them, the desire to do that eventually broke them because they had to, commit too many resources from other parts of the defense in order to try to stop the Michigan running attack. Can TCU slow them down? Yeah, probably for a little bit. Will they be able to withstand for the entirety of the game? Probably not. I think that TCU's game plan has to be in this matchup that they're going to try to create big plays on offense and try to play from in front of Michigan. I think that that's the key, is that you've got to get into a game in which they're uncomfortable. It just has not happened much all season long. They were a bit uncomfortable early in the Ohio State game, got a couple of big plays, and then they were able to play from the lead. This is a team that is a front-running team. That's the style of game that they want to play. So rather than, at least for me, rather than thinking about like, how does TCU's defense do? I think it's more about the offense, and in particular, the first 3 or 4 possessions. Can you get a lead and make Michigan uncomfortable? I think that's the biggest key for TCU in this game.
Joel Klatt is with us on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline. He is presented by MyBookie.ag, code next round. He is with us from San Diego, where you can watch tomorrow night's Holiday Bowl here locally on Fox 6 at 7 o'clock. Good matchup, Oregon and North Carolina. In that Michigan game, though, we were just talking about Jim Harbaugh, and I don't know that anybody – I know you've spent some time on Harbaugh. I don't know how well anybody knows Jim Harbaugh. Do you believe he's committed to the college game? I mean – year after year, these NFL jobs are going to have his name attached to them.
I know that last year, like if Minnesota would have materialized, he was going to take it. And a lot of times what happens with coaches is like they flirt. And then when it doesn't happen, they recommit themselves to their location, or level. That happened, by the way, just offhand real quick. That happened with Mike Gundy. A few years ago. Remember all the times he was linked to the Tennessee job?
Yep.
And he was always wanting the Tennessee job. And then he finally was like, what am I doing? I've got a good thing going here. I fit here. He grew the mullet and became, and he's been very successful because of it. It's my belief that Jim had that type of moment being in college and at Michigan after the Minnesota flirtation a year ago. I think he really enjoys coaching college. I think that he's finally doing it on his terms. He's not running an offense or a defense that he thinks he needs to run, but he's built the team in his image and his family's image. It's his brother's defensive structure. He borrows coaches from his brother. They send him back and forth, and then offensively, this is exactly what he wants to do offensively. We all know that. It's the way that he's been successful across all levels. I would be surprised if he jumped to the NFL. I think he really appreciates and enjoys what he's doing at the college level. There's a major caveat to this answer, and that is I think every single coach, so this is not Harbaugh specific, but I think every single coach in the college game is growing sick and tired of not transfers and NIL, but the mashed up calendar in which they have to deal with all of it at the same time. And I think that's the calendar in college football is going to be one of the biggest hindrances to keeping talented coaches. I think that there are going to be other coaches, not just Jim Harbaugh, that are going to be made overtures from the NFL. I think Lincoln's going to get overtures. I think Ryan Day is going to get overtures. And what these guys are going to start looking at is their quality of life. When you've got to deal with what is going on in the month of December, it makes no sense. We need to fix the calendar if we want to retain some of our quality coaches at this level.
Yeah, and for those that don't pay attention, the NFL, they have a month where there's a combine, a month where there's mini camps,
right.
There's a month there's
everything's
a draft.
Spread out.
Yeah, it's there's no overlapping of the portal, coaching changes. You're still playing bowl games and playoff games, and you've got to do your biggest signing day all at the same time. It was a mess last week for all these college coaches.
Well, and by the way, it's a mess for the players as well. See, I firmly believe that we need to make the high school signing day totally separate from the transfer portal. And the reason is because I want there to be a more defined number of seats available in the transfer portal so that guys can make more informed decisions rather than jumping in thinking there's going to be a spot and then being left out in a game of what do they call it? The chairs,
musical chairs. Yeah.
There you go. So like, it would be better for the players. It would be better for the coaches. And unfortunately, in our sport, we've been too consumed trying to fix the postseason for far too long that we haven't addressed some of these real structural issues that could help the sport in a major way.
Yeah. For instance, Sam Hartman, who's now in the portal today, is going to go somewhere and be the starting quarterback. If I'm a high school quarterback, he may go to the school I picked thinking I was going to have playing time my first year, and Hartman may end up going to my school. Say I committed to Notre Dame, and I think I had a chance to be the starter. If he goes to Notre Dame, he's going to be the starter. I picked maybe the wrong school for me. I mean, it's crazy. What do you think of Sam Hartman? You followed his career. He's an ACC record setter. Would you, if you're Freeman at Notre Dame, Napier at Florida, anywhere that needs a quarterback,
yeah, of course,
you're okay with
1 year?
I
mean, yes. Look at the way that, and I don't think. Well, all right. So look at the way that a single player like a good quarterback has changed the fortune of programs in 1 year. And I hesitate a little bit just because it's not solely one guy. It's usually a combination, but like a coach and a quarterback. But think of and it's not even just, hey, it's easy to say, look at what Lincoln Riley and Caleb Williams did. But Williams is a generational talent, I believe. Look at Kalen DeBoer and Michael Penix. Mm-hmm. 4 wins to 10 wins at Washington. Look at Tennessee, with Hendon Hooker and what he was able to do after transferring in. And I know that it took a little bit of time then to develop. But if you can get a guy like a Hartman, I think that you go do that. If you think that you have a team that can win, and that's your one question is the quarterback position. I do think it's interesting, though, because that's such a specific offense that he played in, right? I mean, that slow mesh is so unique. And so I don't know. We'll see.
You will see tomorrow night two guys that I think are in the Heisman discussion. One I know will be in Drake Maye. I think Bo Nix, the former Auburn quarterback, has got to start the year in the Heisman discussion the way he played most of the year this year, Klatt.
I don't disagree. Before they kind of stumbled down the stretch, he was garnering that attention. Both of them were this year. I think Oregon, Dan Lanning has done a heck of a job. The one thing for Bo Nix that I think is interesting, peering into the looking glass of next year, is that without Kenny Dillingham as his offensive coordinator, what is he going to be? And, we've seen him have to deal with the changes at that coordinator position before, and he hasn't reacted well at Auburn. You guys know that, like he had really up and down from year to year. And so with Will Stein coming in, I know Will, actually. He played for the guy that I cut my teeth under as the offensive coordinator at Colorado, was the coordinator at Louisville when Will Stein was there. His name's Sean Watson. And Will was there the kind of the Bridgewater years and everything. So I know how Will cut his teeth. And I know Will knows what he's doing. So I think that it's going to work, but that would be my major question about Bo Nix, is just like, how's he going to do without Dillingham? And then Drake Maye, I think Drake Maye, watching him on tape this week, I've just come away so impressed. And I watched him during the year, but obviously, when you're not covering their games, it's you're trying to pop in and see a few of the games that he's playing. But when you actually sit there and actually break it down, he is so impressive. One of the best young quarterbacks I've seen in a long time. And to me, when I look at next year, the three guys that immediately start the year as kind of favorites, and I know you guys are going to kill me because none of these guys are SEC guys, but Penix, Caleb Williams, and Drake Maye are the three guys that I'm like, man, those are the three that I think are going to start the year as with the most hype going forward.
Any of those guys could hit the portal and come to the SEC, though.
Yeah.
If they see the light.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. I mean, you never know. Now, I don't think Penix and Williams will, but the May issue, I don't know.
There's been a lot of smoke out there. Real quick, you mentioned Dan Lanning and Klatt. There were a couple of there were some in-game fourth down calls that a lot of people criticized him for this year because they didn't work.
Yeah,
and two major situations there. I have made the prediction that he is ultimately Nick Saban's successor at Alabama, and I'm probably going to be wrong about that, but it's a prediction. Well, what does he do well? When you look at Dan Lanning, and you've been around him some, what does this guy do well running a program?
Well, gosh, there's a lot. Okay. And I know that he's only run his own program for a year, so some of this you have to borrow from what he was able to help create at Georgia. I think that he does an unbelievable job in recruiting, first and foremost. It's still my favorite line of the entire year in a press conference when Kirby Smart got caught, basically saying, like, I want to thank Dan Lanning for recruiting the players that just kicked Dan Lanning's ass. You remember that. Like that's basically what he said after, so like he can recruit. And part of that is not just getting the kids to commit, but the guys getting and evaluating the right guys. And I've always been impressed with that because Georgia has the right players. They fit their system really well. They don't just go out and chase stars, even though they get stars. They chase the right fit for their structure. And I think that that's a rare trait in college football. So he does that really well. And then the other part of it is just, I think that he's willing to think outside the box. And that's not just about like fourth down calls, but it's everything. It's the fact that he hired, a guy in his early 30s to be his offensive coordinator, even though he was a first-year head coach. And then he loses that guy to Arizona State. And what does he do? Hire another guy who's in his early 30s to be the offensive coordinator. That's a bit outside the box because the traditional thinking would be, I haven't done this before. I need to surround myself with others that have done it. He's unapologetic about some of those moves that he makes in the fourth quarter. And then ultimately it comes down to the fact that this is a team that really believes in their chemistry, which goes to the head coach. And they're also really tough at the line of scrimmage. That offensive line and the way that they play, I think fits what Dan Lanning wants to do. So they're a modern college football program where they're going to spread things out. They're going to run a modern offense, but they've got old school toughness to go with it. And then the recruiting, I think, will be really good, in particular on the defensive side.
Ohio State beats Georgia to get to the national championship game. How? That's the other semifinal game. How does Ohio State win that football game?
Yeah, there's only one way. There's, if this is a 10-lane highway, if this game is played 10 times, whatever you want to say, there's only a couple of lanes that I think Ohio State comes away with a win. And it's pretty clear to me, anytime that Georgia has struggled or lost in the last 38 games, it's because they face a dynamic quarterback wide receiver combination. We saw that last year with Alabama when Jameson Williams was able to go off. I think Bama, and I know I'm going to get killed for this, Bama probably wins the national championship if Jameson doesn't get hurt in that game. Remember, it was not even the second quarter yet, I don't believe, and he had already had like 67 yards receiving and seemed to be getting loose just as he was in the SEC championship game. So they struggle when you can put out like a dynamic passing attack. Now, some have said to me, like, Joel, what are you talking about? They shut down Tennessee. I said dynamic, not just productive. Tennessee's passing attack is very elementary. Half field reads, two-man combination choice routes, and a quarterback that doesn't drop back at all. So if you can get a little pressure on them, you can make things uncomfortable, and then they were able to have success. Weather, obviously, that day helped them out a little bit. But when they face a team like Alabama, that passing attack, the ability to take away the effectiveness of the line of scrimmage, get out on screens, get out on the edge, attack down the middle of the field, full field read, so on and so forth. I don't want to say they struggle, but that's the way that you can potentially beat them. So Marvin Harrison Jr. has to have a big day. Emeka Egbuka has to have a big day. C.J. Stroud has to have a big day. And Ryan Day's got to call one of the best, games that he's called in his career. One thing I will say, and I'm going to pick Georgia, so don't get all over me about this, SEC fans. I will say, though, when Ryan has time, his offensive game plans are really, really strong. You saw that against Clemson in the last playoff. And so I think that that game is going to be really a good game. I really do.
All right, 7 o'clock tomorrow night on Fox. You'll see Oregon and North Carolina at Petco Park, by the way, in the San Diego County Credit Union Holiday Bowl. As a kid growing up, the Holiday Bowl was always the most entertaining bowl game.
It was.
Often did not have the major implications, Klatt, but always an entertaining
And other
game.
than Stetson and C.J. Stroud, it's the best quarterback matchup of the postseason.
You're right.
It's a great quarterback matchup. And going into bowl season, I was like, are these two guys going to play? What's going to happen? Now they're both here. They're both playing. I couldn't be more thrilled with how this game is going to play out. I think there's going to be a ton of points. And we get to meet with Mac Brown today. Hey, Joel, how's your daddy? How's he doing? I remember recruiting him, at his school. He was so great.
How's your daddy? Total of 75 in that game. To Klatt's point about points, 75 is your total. Oregon favored by 14.
Take the over.
Klatt says, Uber.
Oh, so that means it'll be a 4-hour broadcast. Klatt's part of it.
What's better than 3 hours of Gus and Joel? 4 hours of Gus and Joel, right?
It'll be prime time.
Hey, by the way, I see you're adjusting your earpiece there. Check with our boy Bo when you go to his room. He's his new NIL's with Bo's headset. So get a freebie with Bo when you go talk to him.
These always slip out.
I've heard that about the new. Are those the new AirPods?
Yeah, AirPods Pro.
Yeah. I've heard that. Yeah. I've heard they don't fit your ear as well.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Fox. Thanks a lot.
Baller.
Yeah, you know who does not get that anymore? The CBS crew from the SEC. They don't get that kind of stuff anymore.
Nope.
That contract's running out, man.
Right. All right, Klatt. We'll see you tomorrow night on the game, man. We appreciate.
They're going to get parkas now because they're coming up to
That's right.
Bad weather.
Yeah. Enjoy the game. We'll see you next week.
All right, bro. Later.
All right. See you. Joel Klatt with the C2 courtesy of MyBookie. MyBookie.ag code next round. MyBookie.ag code next round. On that game, he is calling Oregon a 14-point favorite over North Carolina, but a big total of 75. Klatt likes the over, it appears. You can play at MyBookie.ag code next round. That is MyBookie.ag. Get that big sign-on bonus with code next round.